Yeah. 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 So many lies that you hear from the net, they don't get her respect. She reporting the truth, not a check. You want an unbiased opinion straight from the chest, not a bit of conflict or someone here for a check. Tune in, these are thoughts from a lawyer on a mission who goes so hard it's like she works on commission. Trolls in the comments might say she tripping cause they lack the knowledge, they don't know they missing. Got a couple current events that you like, wanna know about law from the eyes. Tired of all these blogs running lies because their agendas are disguised. Tune in to the intellect, cause I'm sure y'all missing all the facts of the case that she steady is gifting. Someone here for the people, man, it's so uplifting. If you ain't subscribed yet, then you just omitting facts.
Hello, everyone. My name is Pam Esquire, also known as Your Law Intellect, and we are back for a part 2 today on the Jonathan Majors verdict. I have been going through the questions under my video. We had a very, a decent live, 900 and something people on earlier, and I just put some of the evidence out there, and I let you guys marinate on some of the evidence. Well, it's been a lot of chatter in the comment section, and instead of going line by line, precept by precept, explaining things, I figured now that we have the evidence out there, we will come back for our part 2 and we will discuss the actual allegation of the assault. So we'll go over the statute, what the jury was looking at. We can go over that, because there is a difference between recklessness and there is a difference between intent, between recklessness and intent. So we are going to go over what the jury had to look at it, and then I want you guys to just open up your minds. Now, on the first video, I also mentioned about what Jonathan Majors perhaps can do to try to salvage his career. I didn't think it would be the end of his career. We're already getting notices from different blogs that allegedly Marvel has already dropped them. So that's pretty swift. Sounds pretty swift to me. And we already see that there is a statement from the DA that I posted on my community wall. And there was also a statement from Jonathan Majors. Now, I was sitting there waiting to see what Jonathan Majors had to say, because I thought that would be very interesting just to see what he had to say. Thank you so much, HFG, for the super sticker. I appreciate your support. Hey, Lisa, didn't see you earlier. Thank you so much for catching up. D and Rhonda and Starbell and Miss Parker. I see all of you guys. Dr. Mac, thank you guys for your continual support. This is a part 2. For those of you that weren't on earlier, we're going to get a little bit more in depth, but we won't. I'll try not to be before you long. I always say that, but I am a preacher's kid. So we don't have the same time as everyone else. So when we say we may not be before you long, that means we probably got about 20 more minutes in us, But let me go over, if you guys don't know and haven't been on the internet today, Jonathan Majors, who is the Marvel star, he starred in Creed 3, I believe. He was convicted today of third-degree assault recklessly causing physical injury and second-degree harassment. He was found not guilty on second-degree aggravated harassment and an additional third-degree assault charge with intent to cause physical harm. So he was found guilty as to the reckless assault, but he was found not guilty as to the intentional assault. So let's just go over Jonathan Majors' statement right quick again. Let's get right into it, because I'm gonna get all this out the way before I actually get into the prongs of the statute, because so many people said various things. They wanted to remind me of things that she had done and the evidence that she, being Jabari, who is the victim in this case, that she went to a club and she did this, she did that. I think people fail to realize that there are actual elements within a statute. And if all those elements apply, then you will be found guilty. If there's some reasonable doubt on one, two, any of those elements, then it'll be not guilty. In this case, they looked at the actual statute and they found that the elements applied. That does not negate the fact of what you guys seen, that the defense was trying to, I don't know, maybe they were using the video to show she was not injured, because that's what people were telling me in the chat. How was she injured? And she went to a party after the fact. Well, a jury looked at those photos that we looked at earlier and we'll look at now, and found that she was guilty. As long as it fit in that statute, they tell you don't act on emotion, even though we know juries do. But don't act on certain things, but just act on pure facts and compare it to the statute and see if it fits. But in a statement today, I thought it was very interesting, because if you were on my first live, I felt like, Major should say, hey, I got some issues. Somebody in the chat also told me that Jonathan Major's mom allegedly is like a psychologist or therapist, and so he has the help in his family, is what they were saying. But they may not want to talk to their family member. I understand that. And I just said, hey, go get the help you need, because it seemed like a toxic relationship, whether it was him or whether it was her. Generally, of course, us not being in it, we're all speculating. It looked like a classic toxic relationship. So I thought that would be the approach that he went. But according to this statement, which is from his attorney, Priya Chaudhry, she said, quote, "It is clear that the jury did not believe Grace Jabari's story of what happened in the SUV, because they found that Mr. Majors did not intentionally cause any injuries to her. We are grateful for that. We are disappointed, however, that despite not believing Miss Jabari, the jury nevertheless found that Mr. Majors was somehow reckless while she was attacking him. Mr. Majors is grateful to God, because remember, he brought the Bible in every day, his family, his friends, and his fans for their love and support during these harrowing 8 months. Mr. Major still has faith in the process and looks forward to fully clearing his name." So I'm like, so maybe he plans on fighting those guilty. He might plan on going a little bit further and exercising his some appellate rights here. Then we had the DA, Alvin Braggs, who also came with the statement. And he said, "At the Manhattan DA's office, we are committed to centering survivors in all of our work. The evidence presented throughout this trial illustrated a cycle of psychological and emotional abuse and escalating patterns of coercion, far too common across the many intimate partner violent cases we see each and every day. Today, a jury determined that pattern of abuse and coercion culminated with Mr. Majors assaulting and harassing his girlfriend. We thank the jury for its service and the survivor for bravely telling her story despite having to relive her trauma." And it does have at the top, this was tweeted by Alvin Braggs, the Manhattan DA, who said Jonathan Majors was just found guilty by a Manhattan criminal court jury of assault in the 3rd degree and harassment in the 2nd degree. And then the statement was there below that I just read. So what exactly is the statute that they were looking at? So let's share that, because I think that would give us a little bit of insight. So assault in the 3rd degree, New York Penal Code Section 120, a person is guilty of assault in the 3rd degree when, with intent to cause physical injury to another person, he causes such injury to such person or to a third person, or, so this is the or, because he was not found guilty of this intent portion. He recklessly causes physical injury to another person. So it's the or he recklessly causes physical injury to a person. So that's what he was actually convicted of. Now, if you go over the actual elements of that, so you guys understand what they mean by these terms, which I believe is obviously important. This is what the jury had to look at. Under our law, a person is guilty of assault in the third degree when that person recklessly causes physical injury to another person. The following terms used in that definition have a special meaning. So, physical injury means impairment of physical condition or substantial pain. A person acts recklessly with respect to physical injury when that person engages in conduct which creates or contributes to a substantial and unjustifiable risk that physical injury to another person will occur, and when he or she is aware of and consciously disregards that risk, and when that risk is of such nature and degree that disregard of it constitutes a gross deviation from the standard of conduct that a reasonable person would observe in that situation. In law school, when they talk about recklessness, they usually, probably across the state, across the country rather, use the same example. If you are in a crowd of people and you decide to discharge a firearm with a group of people there, you may not intend to hit not now one person there, but there's a probability because it's behavior that can cause injury. You are reckless because that's the behavior that you've done that can cause injury. You may not intend to hit Sally or Sue or whoever, but your behavior is it, you're in a situation where you knew that if I shoot this GUN, I may cause some type of injury. It's the same thing. This is what the jury was faced with. Okay. Now we have to look at the injuries. Remember, we looked at the injuries on the last one. So they say there has to be some form of physical injury. This is what the jury had to apply the evidence to the actual statute. So let's look at these injuries right quick again. This is the injury she was alleging that occurred. So yes, the allegation is that Jonathan Majors and Grace Jabari were in a vehicle, and Jabari looked over, saw Jonathan Majors' phone, and there was a text from another woman saying something about, I wish I was kissing you right now, or something like that. She got upset and she tried to grab the phone. He tried to get the phone back. So as he was trying to get the phone back, it's alleged that all of these injuries occurred. This is what he was doing, according to her physically in order to get his phone back. If you look at the actual statute of what reckless is, perhaps he went too far trying to get this phone back. So let's look at the other picture again, because I just want to make sure I'm clear based on some of the questions that were in my chat, and it was just going to be too much for me to answer it line by line. So here goes the finger. This is the finger that was broken. So he broke her finger trying to get the phone back. Yes, she took his phone and she shouldn't have taken his phone. But did he act recklessly when he was trying to get his phone back? Because he actually broke her finger. This is the injury that's being alleged. Now, again, remember the statute requirement recklessly engages in conduct which creates or contributes to a substantial and unjustifiable risk that physical injury to another person will occur. So, yes, he was not, when it came to intentional, it didn't sound like he was in the car and he was like, I can't stand you today. You get on my nerves. That's not what it was. He didn't just say, I'm about to strangle you. What he is accused of, or how it all started, is he was trying to get the phone back from her. So he was doing whatever was necessary that he felt to get his phone back. And some of that caused injury. And that's what he was found guilty of. Let me see the other one. Then she had the neck injury as well that she showed. LaShondra said, or did she hit him and break her own finger like I did years ago? I don't think he's denied trying to get the phone back. That's number one. Number two, if that is the case, nobody was going to testify to that. Who was going to testify to that? That she broke her own finger. She didn't testify to that. So even if that was the case, her testimony was her finger was broken by him grabbing the phone. Who else? He didn't get on the stand and say, I witnessed her snap her finger back. You have to look at, see, it's a lot of speculation. And this is why one of the reasons why I didn't want to go over this case, because you guys wore me out with Tory Lanez, and still wearing me out. I still get the most comments out of all of my videos under Tory Lanez, because everybody has speculation, but we could speculate all we want to. We could come to conspiracies. We could have come with some coulda, shouldas, wouldas. But what did the jury see? That's why on the first video, I made sure that I put up the evidence that the prosecution presented, so you guys can see the evidence of what was presented on behalf of the prosecution, so you guys can see what the jury saw. That was my point of doing that earlier. You said, Daniel said, how can this guy face jail time and not OJ? OJ who? Simpson? Who did like 10 years or 8 years for robbery, right, trying to steal back his own stuff? OJ did do time. You talking about from the unaliving? Because OJ was found not guilty, if you're talking about that part. So that's why, of course, he's not going to do jail time. And he may not do jail time. We don't know if Jonathan Majors is going to do jail time. It's a misdemeanor. It's from 0 to 1 year. He may not do jail time. We don't know. So, no, he did not harm her. He didn't harm her intentionally. There were no intentional acts. It was reckless. That's why it was third-degree assault, recklessly causing physical injury. If you guys look at the statute that I put up, when you use the recklessly, that the first one is intent. The jury did not find that it was intent, meaning he deliberately said, today you getting on my nerves. I'm about to break your finger. I'm about to choke you up like some people do. He was trying to get his phone back, and in the process, he physically harmed her. That's what it sounds like to me. Y'all can tell me what it sounds like. So it has New York Penal Code says the person is guilty of assault in the third degree when, with the intent to cause physical injury to another person, he causes such injury to such person or to a third person. That is not what he was found guilty of. He was found guilty on he recklessly causes physical injury to another person. That's what he was found guilty of. And then we went over what the terminology of reckless was as well. Call Me Blessed said, just curious, where did he meet the young lady? It was on the set of Ants, I believe, and she's from another country. But it was on the set of some movie, and she's a dancer, so that's where he met her. So Jeff said, I think she hurt her finger when she pulled on his jacket as he was running away. That's interesting. I wonder if the defense brought that up, that it could have been other ways that she hurt her finger that wasn't hit, just in the car. Because all of this has to do with the assault. I think the harassing, let me pull up harassing. Harassing has something to do with outside of the vehicle, if I am correct, remember correctly. So, harassment in the second degree, a person is guilty of harassment in the second degree when, with intent to harass, annoy, or alarm another person, he or she strikes, shoves, kicks, or otherwise subjects such other person to physical contact or attempts or threatens to do the same, or he or she follows a person in or about a public place or places. That sounds like what that video was showing with her, or he or she engages in a course of conduct or repeatedly commits acts which alarm or seriously annoy each other person and which serve no legitimate person. So he was found guilty of that as well. Let me see this video because we kind of watched it a little bit earlier. I don't know if I put it back up. But again, both of these are misdemeanor charges. I don't know. You guys think he should appeal it? He should try to, roll the dice. Hey, Miss Parker says, so Pam, is this like a tort if it were civil case class? Yes, it would be. Assault, you can have assault civilly and you can have assault criminally. And yes, it would be a tort. Yes, Miss Parker, I'm so proud of you. That would be what you learn in torts. You have torts 1 and 2 in your first and second semester, along with contracts 1 and 2, and you have crim law 1 and 2. And then you have criminal procedures. I think is that all you have that's mandatory? I think those are like the mandatory classes, and then you can have, you add on other classes. But yes, that would be a Civ Pro class. Let me see if I can find this. I know it's boring, guys. I just wanted people were asking questions, and I just wanted to make sure you understood why. It's not, we can bring up, well, she did this and she did that and she did this and she did that. And it's like they're going by the prongs. That's what they're going by. They're trying to go by the prongs. Let me see. Let me make sure. Hold on. So I know it's one part that's, let me see. Again, this has no sound, so this is, I don't know if I can make this any bigger though. This is them getting out of the vehicle when he was trying to put her back in. And then they did everything in slow motion. The prosecutors added maps and everything on here. So this was the prosecution's exhibit. I don't know if I can make this any bigger. Probably not, since I screen recorded it, huh? So that was the part where I think was mentioned about her pulling on his coat and him just running away. So somebody made a point that perhaps she could have broken her finger anywhere. She could have got the neck injury anywhere, but you got to prove an alternative. And then the jury has to believe the alternative that you gave. And it cannot be an alternative that you don't have evidence that you placed on for the jury to consider. What we say as lawyers is not evidence at all. So we can say whatever. So we can all sit here and say, but what about this? But what about this? But what about, it's not relevant if it's not evidence within the case. Same thing I dealt with Tory Lanez. People were letting me have it. I knew that this was going to be pretty similar. So I was that's why I went on earlier. And then I was like, okay, let me try to answer all the questions because I'm sure it's going to be a lot of them. Sometimes I wish I could get all the questions beforehand and then answer them on the live, but unfortunately I can't. Hey, Bougie Barbie. Yeah, allegedly they said that Marvel has he was set to star in some more movies, and they said nope, they don't want that. They don't want that type of bad press, so they choose not to work with him now. Who are the people who are trying to? Who are the people who are comforting her and helping call the police? She obviously was not bleeding because the one lady hugs her. I don't know. It looks like some random people, and I believe in an article that's what they were saying is that she went there to try to get people to help her get an Uber, and she must have told other people she was hurt or whatever. I knew I should have went to the courtroom. This was a case I was supposed to be at, and then I was like, man, I don't feel like traveling for real. Well, um, that's a very interesting. I wonder what they would appeal on. Would they appeal on the fact that they showed those old text messages and they feel like it should not have been entered? I don't know what their grounds would be. Would they appeal and say the great weight of the evidence was against convicting him? I mean I would be curious to see, but how else would he clear his name? Maybe he's not gonna appeal in this another way. You guys help me. What you think he was talking about when he said that he was going to try to clear his name? What do you think he would be talking about? Deanne Matthews said, not bleeding is not a sign that one won't get hugged. It depends on how much people around you feel you need the comfort. Clothes can be washed. That is true. I need to know, I mean, like, what else do you think he meant by saying, I'm going to see, he looks forward to clearing his name? I just believe that he handled himself differently in the entire ordeal. He would be an entirely different situation now. I just feel like he must have been into somebody during investigation. Well, you seen the statement from his lawyer that there's evidence, and the evidence they have, the prosecution is just doing their job and they're bringing these charges, but once they get this evidence they're going to drop the charges. And then when they released them, I remember seeing them on the shade room. I was like, okay, so it was like she was apologizing because she felt bad that she got him in trouble, is what I got from those text messages. I didn't get it where it was anything just major. So that's why I was like, is that, I hope you got more than that, because they're going to continue with those charges based on that. Thank you, Worldwide Collaboration. I appreciate it. I know a lot of you guys were on earlier. This might be a whole different set of people. But yeah, I wanted to make sure you guys understood the statute, because earlier I just went over a lot of the evidence. When I went over the evidence earlier, it was just, I just wanted to let you guys see exactly what the jury saw. And then I told you what the prongs were. But then when I started seeing some of the headlines, I was like, man, let me pull this statute up. I'm gonna have to come back and pull the statute up so people understand. There is a difference between intentional and reckless. I don't know if that sways you guys anyway, one way or another, knowing it wasn't intentional or reckless, but his attorney seems to feel that they didn't believe her and her testimony because they didn't say it was intentional. I'm not sure exactly what that means because if I recall correctly, her testimony, she acknowledged that he was trying to get the phone away from her. So I'm not sure exactly what that statement is statementing about, but Bougie said he's gonna appeal his decision. I mean, listen, Jesse Smollett appealed his decision. He appealed his decision. He said that he was being honest. It was not a hoax. He appealed his decision when he was found guilty. So said they just running through the streets like leapfrogs. For this to be New York, man, every time I'm in New York, it's all super busy. I'm like, this is probably the clearest streets I have ever seen. So that's it. That's the video, guys. That's the video that I talked all through. Let me think of any more questions that let me throw this up with physical injury. So you guys were able to see her injuries. I showed that again. So now we are going to look at what the jury was looking at. So the following terms are used in that definition have a special meaning. Physical injury means impairment of physical condition or substantial pain. If someone allegedly breaks your finger, do you think that's substantial pain? Put a 1 in the chat if you think that it is. Put a 2 in the chat if you think that it's not, based on the pictures that we showed. If in fact, because clearly they believe that he is the culprit, he is the cause of this broken finger, even though everyone can say, well, she could have had it this way, it could have happened here, it could have happened the next day, it could have happened when she was shaking it up at the club, could have happened here, she didn't look hurt at the club, she didn't look hurt here. The jury believed her that she was injured, her finger was injured, or whatever the injury was, um for that prom. Okay, so we got one, and Miss MJ said no. So one for most of the people, they believe that it was, you said, justifiable assault. Okay. I don't know if they had a, we don't call it that here, but I think you're meaning like similar to like a self-defense kind of sorta. I've heard of justifiable assault. So does anybody know if that was an actual jury instruction? Or was he going and just saying he was assaulted? Maybe that was his whole thing. He was saying he was assaulted and she wasn't. That's all I kept hearing, is that he was assaulted and she wasn't, from his camp. I didn't hear too much of, well, she tried to take the phone and all I did was try to get it back. And that was the gist of it. And then I tried to get out of Dodge. I was running away from old girl. It sounded like she was the aggressor because, as you guys saw, he tried to have his attorney file charges against her from some incident that allegedly happened. And then the prosecution declined to prosecute. So it sounds like he was trying to paint her out to be the bad person. And then we got these text messages that came out. African D said, my question is, why is there a difference in interpretations of the verdict? If a misdemeanor, what does that mean for him? How egregious is it for him other than his reputation being it's a misdemeanor. Misdemeanors mean that you don't serve more than a year. You serve less than a year in jail is your maximum punishment. I think putting your hands on anybody is not acceptable, misdemeanor or felony, but he's not He's a first-time offender, from my understanding. He doesn't have a record. Now, if you have a history of DV, this same incident could have been a felony because you have a history of it. A person acts recklessly with respect to physical injury when that person engages in conduct which creates or contributes to a substantial and unjustifiable risk that physical injury to another person will occur, and when he or she is aware of and consciously disregards that risk, and when that risk is of such nature and degree that disregard of it constitutes a gross deviation from the standard of conduct that a reasonable person would observe in the situation. So, if you guys recall, when the jury was deliberating over the last few days, they asked to get the instructions again. They asked to get information on the statute again. So it sounds like they were asking for certain evidence, and then they were asking to see the statute. They wanted it read back to them again. Like they wanted to know what all of the counts were. They wanted to know all of that. So it sounds like to me they were just trying to apply the evidence they had that they were allowed to consider, that the judge told them to consider, because they may have heard other things that the judge says you cannot consider this because it's deemed inadmissible. So whatever the judge has said is what has been rightfully admitted. That's what they apply to the actual statute to come up with a guilty or not guilty. Thank you so much. That is true. Misdemeanors do not have the civil rights consequences that felonies do either. What do I mean by that? Sometimes you end up losing your right to vote with felonies. Sometimes you lose your right to be on a jury when you become a felon. There are a lot of consequences that can occur, civil rights that people have fought of and feel like once you do your time, it does not matter. You should be able to get all of your rights back. But those are taken from you oftentimes when you are found guilty or you plead to a felony. So, MB said that was not a jury of his peers. I would like to know what the jury asked. Did they know anything about this case? I would like to know if his attorney polled the jury. By polling the jury, that means, and it's up to the jury, you can ask them, why did you think A, B, C, D, and E? And I would have, I mean, it's no, you did win 2 counts. You lost 2 counts, but you won 2 counts. So to go back there and see what their mind frame was. What was it about you that swayed? Why did you think the way that you did? Why did you rule the way that, why was your decision? What were you mulling over? Was it swaying towards guilty on all count? Like, I would want to know. And that's how you become a better attorney as well. Because some things you like, oh, I'm not going to do that next time. But I believe, and some people didn't agree with me, that is true. Karen said can't get federally supported by financial aid. That is true. That is another consequence of a felony. They ask you that on your FAFSA forms. Are you a convicted felon? So that is true. I know a lot of people didn't agree when I said, according to the chat, when I was saying that I believe, and this is just my opinion, and you don't have to make my opinion yours. I do believe that those text messages had something to do with the jury's decision. Yes, I do believe, obviously, based on what we know, the reckless and the physical injuries can be shown based on the statute. But if you were on the fence about it, I believe that the jury may have looked at that and said, that's very interesting. What text messages are you referring to, Pam? I'm glad you asked. There were text messages that originally were not going to be a part of this case. However, because some situations happened, I don't know exactly what was said, But something was said by the defense attorney when she was cross-examining Jabari, Miss Jabari, and it opened up the door and it allowed these text messages from the past. What we call these is like prior bad acts. And I'm sure any prior bad acts, I know where I am, you have to alert on both sides that you're going to try to use like the prosecution has to alert you that they're trying to use prior bad acts, which is things that you've done in the past. As a defense attorney, you try to suppress, you do motion in limines so that it won't come in. You argue that before, so it's never in front of a jury. You don't ever have to object to it. They never hear it. From my understanding, these text messages were deemed inadmissible. However, at the time of the trial, something happened upon cross-examination, and these text messages were admitted. These text messages were former text messages between Jonathan Majors and Grace Jabari, and this is what it says. You can't reject love if there is no real love. It's just lip service. I gave you love last night and this morning before I got out of bed. When you got up, you were not full of love at all. I didn't feel it at all. You could have just given me a hug or walked close to me or asked me if you could give me a hug. Not the other way around. It works both ways. I will probably meal myself, but he was meaning to put a K there. It's not really contemplating anymore. I'm a monster, a horrible man, not capable of love. I am unaliving myself soon. I've already put things in motion. She responds, Jonathan, you can't say this. I'm going to have to call someone. I'm sorry for not hugging you this morning. I really am. I was sleepy and disoriented by the fact you thought I would break your necklace. I love you so much, obviously. What do you mean you've put this in motion? You have a family, Jonathan, a mother and a daughter. What would Ella do without you? Don't do this to her. Don't even think these thoughts. So that was admitted. Jonathan says it's just fake. And you have, I fear you have no perspective of what could happen if you go to the hospital. So this seemed like there was a pattern or some previous altercation where he had put his hands on her. They will ask you questions, and as I don't think you actually protect us, it could lead to an investigation, even if you do lie and they suspect something. She responds, I will tell the doctor I bumped my head. If I go, I'm going to give it one more day, but I can't sleep and I need some stronger painkillers. That's all. Why would I want to tell them what really happened when it's clear I want to be with you? So basically, she's saying, I already know what's going to happen. If I go in there and say, you put your hands on me, you're going to end up locked up and I still want to be with you. So I'm not going to tell them that because I already know what the consequences are going to be. Said, I feel like you want to be together, as in to not embarrass yourself for everything you said to your friends and family. Last night, I considered unaliving myself versus coming home. You said you needed love last night, and I put my feelings aside and tried to give you that. I need love too. Or maybe I'm such a monster and horrible man that I don't deserve it. You should just ill myself. I should just ill myself. This way of existence is miserable. I want to die. So those messages ended up being admitted. And this was a whole nother incident. So it basically showed that the toxicity, I think, is what they were showing, like the pattern. So that's what Alvin Braggs was basically talking about. Yeah, sunflower. Sounds like a toxic relationship to me. What a toxic relationship said. Eric said that's the same mistake Tory Lane's lawyer made in their trial. They pushed too hard and got evidence admitted. Yep, absolutely. That's how that 80-minute interview with Kelsey came in, was because his defense attorney was pushing just a tad bit too hard. He was doing okay at first. I was there. I was like, he getting it. Then he got a little bit too excited, and I was like, ooh. Ooh. But yeah, that's exactly what happened. Y'all got any more questions? Because I can't be arguing with y'all in the chat all night. You got any more questions from the first video? I hope that clears it up on what the actual convictions were. It was third-degree assault, recklessly causing physical injury. You guys seen the statute. I put the statute up. That's the authority. He was not guilty on second-degree aggravated harassment and the third-degree assault charge with the intent, which is at the beginning of the statute that I showed you. So he wasn't found guilty of the intent portion, but the recklessly. And then I also let you guys know what recklessly means. So again, you said the physical harm. You guys put a one that perhaps you can see how the jury found physical harm. Do you guys see, based on the definition of how they could have found that it was reckless, that he was reckless? Do you think this is appealable? Because based on the information that we have, and we don't have all of it, based on the information we have, do you believe that it's enough for them to find him reckless? So it has a person acts recklessly with respect to physical injury when that person engages in conduct which creates or contributes to a substantial and unjustifiable risk that physical injury to another person will occur. And when he or she is aware of and consciously disregards that risk, and when that risk is of such nature and degree that disregard of it constitutes a gross deviation from the standard of conduct that a reasonable person would observe in the situation. In order for you to find the defendant guilty of this crime, you guys are the social media jurors. The people are required to prove from all the evidence of the case beyond a reasonable doubt both of the following two elements: that on whatever date in the county the defendant, Jonathan Majors, caused physical injury to Grace Jabari, and that defendant did so recklessly. If you find the people have proven beyond a reasonable doubt both of these elements, you must find the defendant guilty of the crime. So I'm asking you, do you think it was reckless? Somebody mentioned justifiable assault. That perhaps the assault happened, it was justifiable because he should not have taken the phone out of her hand in the first place. And but for you taking this phone, we wouldn't even be in this situation. But then you got to take that coupled with these text messages that were let in on, is this just a pattern that this guy does? So now it's in your hands to decide. You said yes. Okay. D. Lazard said, I had a client who was getting whooped by her husband and she beat the brakes off him. And that was, you guys remember back in the day, they were, what's that movie? It was called The Burning Bed. But when I actually looked at this case, and again, that's one of the reasons why I was like, I don't really want to cover it unless I'm in the courtroom, because I could tell by the headlines, black man, white woman, it's going to be, oh, because it's a white woman, that's why it's helped. So many black women are getting beat. Either he shouldn't have been with a white woman in the first place, or the only reason why he's found guilty is because it's a white woman. And if it was a black woman, they probably would have found something else. Like, you know, those are the headlines. And that's what was happening earlier in my chat. Why is always the black man? The woman always trying to take down the black man. It's like, we just going by the evidence and what they have to prove. That's it. And yes, there was a video showing her at the club. Some people say she didn't look injured. Could that be used to show that she really was not injured at that time? But who is going to say that where was she injured then? That's what a jury would have to think about. Okay, let's just assume, just for conversational purposes, that she really was not injured in the car when he tried to grab the phone, or whenever that they're alleging the injury took place at her finger. What evidence do we have that it occurred someplace else? Did anybody testify that she started screaming about her finger once she grabbed the coat? Did anybody testify that she just got so drunk at her party she went to, or at the club or bar she went to, that she fell and she hurt her finger? Is there any other evidence that shows that something else could have been the cause of this injury? Because that's all the jury has. They tell them they can't be on social media. They can't look on the newspaper. They can't watch TV. They can't do any of this. All of their information is what the judge puts in front of them, and that's all they're supposed to make their decision on. Admissible evidence and the facts that they heard. That's it. Why are people wishing this situation? That is a very good question. I don't know. They I don't know. Maybe they're trying to make it seem like he wouldn't be in this situation if it was a black woman. But then it leads me to think, are you insinuating that a black woman isn't strong enough to go and leave the situation and go snitch on you? I don't know what that's about. C. Patterson 22. That is a very good question. I don't know why people make it seem like they would have preferred that it be a black woman in that place, unless they're trying to allege that the white woman really wasn't hurt and this incident really didn't take place. And the white woman will bring you down every time if you decide to be with them. And if you're with a black sister, you wouldn't be in this situation. I don't know. I'm guessing like you. He said, many of call me blessed one said, many abused women get up and go to work and keep up appearance. Her going to a club is irrelevant, in my opinion. And in your opinion, it's probably similar to a jury. They may not have cared about that at all. That is the public. That's why I said about public opinion. This is just a new day and age where everybody wants to care about now, all these people that you wanted to impress out here in the public, none of them can help you save your job with Marvel. None of them can help you with your acting career. None of them could do none of this stuff. So what did you gain from that? Instead of being strategic, laying low, figuring out the best course of action for yourself. You said Natural Empress said, I have no. We're just discussing it just so we can make sure we consider all options, because we tried to be fair over here. And I wanted to make sure, because people were in the chat, it was reckless. It wasn't intentional. And that makes, so I wanted to make sure I compared the two so you guys know what reckless and intentional. So if it changed your perspective, because I said earlier it was third degree assault recklessly, and that he got, he was acquitted of third degree assault charge with intent to cause physical harm. But apparently, I needed to clarify. So that's what this video is. It's just a clarification of part 1 from earlier today. Let me make sure Dev turned this food off. For yeah. You said that's exactly what they're saying. Oh, wow. Deanne, a lot of people feel that Black women should endure this and not speak up and protect Black men history. I would have to agree with you. And I'm wondering if that's where they're going with that, that's pretty sad. If you was with a Black person, you wouldn't even be in this situation because she wouldn't say anything. That's pretty messed up when you look at it from that angle. Gloria said they are saying that the penalty is more severe with a white woman. I don't think that makes it any better, because that's still saying that a Black woman is being abused. Like, why would you want a Black person in that? So you should be with a Black woman because they don't care about Black women. They are the most unprotected people on this planet. So we don't care. But so if you're with a Black woman, they probably wouldn't care as much that you're beating her brains in. So you should have been with a Black. That's kind of illogical too. That's That's what you said. Yeah. You said I don't like his voice, doesn't match his body. Not natural empress. That is deep that people think, and I think when people keep saying that, that's what you get for being with a white woman. M- You're basically saying, if you were with a black woman, they probably wouldn't even prosecute it. But because she's white, this is why they prosecute. That is horrible. So you should be with a black woman because she would get beaten the head. You could have snatched the phone, broke her finger, choked her in her neck, dragged her all along the street, and nothing would have happened. That's what they're saying without saying it. Santiv, y'all done hype me up. Like, oh, that's horrible. Santivia Major said a lot of people are saying this is what he gets for not sticking to his own kind, as if it would be okay for him to be acquitted of those charges or not even charged if it was a black woman. E Boogie said, remember Megan would have stayed with had Tory has said not said stuff online. I don't were they still together? I don't know if they were still together at that time. I'm not sure of their relationship, but I do know that I don't think Megan would have said anything. She did say that in the video. Meg the Stallion was like, now that you keep talking, now I'm gonna talk. So she did allude to the fact that she wouldn't have said anything if he didn't say anything. Black women are inclined to fight back. Glorious Love said, I don't agree, but I'm looking at it from the perspective of some folks. The Little Gaming Channel said, what they're saying is that black women can take the abuse. Whichever angle we're looking at it, it just does not sound good. Like, what about any of these? If that's what their meaning is, what about that is good? None of that's good. Like none of that's good. That's a whole nother conversation and a topic. Deanne says that's exactly what is being said, that a black woman would have and should have suffered the abuse, as if black women can still be treated like slaves in 2023. That's awful. There are an awful lot of black men who have made 20 years of business on this line of black women not being worthy of the treatment white women are given. So you guys believe that perhaps if it was a black woman, it just wouldn't even went this far because it's a misdemeanor, domestic violence. Perhaps he would have been able to turn in the text messages and the DA would have said, that's good enough. She said that she apologized. It's her fault. They wouldn't have took it as seriously if it was a black woman. It's still pretty sad either way. Christine Williams said, I thought the same thing until I saw the evidence. Those texts hurt him the most. If you never say the text, you would not have known that he was doing it. That's all I was saying. But people didn't agree with me. That's fine. You don't have to agree with me. That's not the channel we are. But yeah, people were saying that they didn't think the text messages really mattered. That jury was able to prove reckless without it, which is true, they could have. But if you needed a swing, if you needed something to push you one way or another, those text messages, in my opinion, would have pushed a jury to go to that side. It would have pushed them to say, you know what, he's done a lot of things that probably caused injury and he just hasn't gotten away with it because she's been quiet, she endures the pain, she won't go to the doctors or whatever, what other reason. So yeah, I think it did aid in their decision, in my opinion. Of course, the only way to know that is if you ask the jury. You could ask the jury, when you saw those text messages, did that matter? When you saw her at the club right after, did that affect you in any way? They could have said, no, it didn't affect me. I didn't care. It didn't have anything to do with the prongs or the elements. I just fitted the elements with the fact. And they'll tell you that. You'll have them tell you, we don't even like your client for real, but they didn't prove their case. So I just stuck to the statute and the facts. And those are the jurors that you want. You don't want jurors that act all willy-nilly on emotion because they don't like one person or don't like the other person. That's really what you want. But it would be I would be curious to see if they choose to appeal the decision. And if they appeal the decision, like what would be like the issues that they would present that they say that happened in this trial. That would be very interesting to me. Oh Lord, Daniel. From Tommy Sotomayor to Kevin Samuels, 20 years of purposeful accusations of Black men agreeing that their sisters are less than while keeping white women on a pedestal. Yeah. Jeff said, no, we Black men must stop belittling our Black women and understand their value in our lives. Just imagine what would do if the roles reversed. You guys heard Jeff. Jeff has spoken. Why is Megan Good tainting her brand like that? You guys have any speculations here? Because this would all be speculation. Any speculations as to why Megan Good would insert herself in this? Do you think she had been talking to Jonathan Majors the whole time? Because I don't think she would randomly. Maybe she was good friends with. I mean, people are saying they're just friends, but it feels like they're more than friends. I mean, the way they present themselves in the public looks more like a relationship. That's a very good question. Why do you think Megan Good would taint her brand like that? I mean, it kept her in the spotlight for the last couple of weeks while the trial was happening. I mean, were you somehow involved? Did any of this stuff turn you off? Can you imagine being the girlfriend and you're sitting back and you see these text messages that I just put up? Like you're the girlfriend, and then the somehow again, these text messages that weren't supposed to be up before, they end up being put on the screen for the whole world to see. And this is your man saying, you can't reject love. If there's no real love, it's just lip service. I gave you love last night and this morning before I got out of bed. When you got up, you were not full of love at all. I didn't feel it at all. You could have just given me a hug or walked close to me or asked me if you could give me a hug, not the other way around. It works both ways. I will probably unalive myself. It's not really contemplating anymore. I'm a monster, a horrible man, not capable of love. I'm unaliving myself soon. I've already put things in motion. Could you imagine being Megan Good, being the girlfriend and hearing that? Like, what would be your thought process? What would run through your mind? Ooh, thank you so much, the Little Gaming Channel, for the super chat. I appreciate it. This was a woman dealing with a man with mental issues. I think it's that simple. Okay. That's what the Little Gaming Channel had to say. DJ said Megan will be gone. No one will hire him. I think how he handles this from this day forward is very crucial, extremely crucial. And I said that earlier. I think he does need to get a PR person, and his PR person should not be his lawyer. PR people usually work with lawyers when it comes to high profile people. And it just does not look like that in this case. When she came out with those text messages before, I was like, what is happening? Why is she coming out with these text messages? So, yeah. Nope, they were all misdemeanors. You asked, was the crime a felony? Nope, glorious love, they were all misdemeanors. Deanne said, I think Megan is rebounding from Devon Franklin. She took the opposite arch. Totally opposite. I don't know if he had a church, but she was a preacher's wife. I was going to say first lady. But she was a preacher's wife. She went from a preacher's wife, and she was not accepted. That was part of the problem. She wasn't accepted in the church because they talked about how she dressed, how she didn't present herself as a preacher's wife. They talked about all of that. And that's one of the things that she endured with that situation. And when they got a divorce, I was actually pretty shocked because he stood up for her. Like he was like, "Don't worry about what my wife wear. Worry about what you wear." So yeah. Thank you, Casey. That he's my fave. That's my fave. Sierra said it's way too much going on in Hollywood. I'm thankful for my regular boring life. You and me both. You and me both. HFG said the lawyer's husband owns his PR firm. Oh, that's interesting. You're saying Jonathan Major's lawyer's husband owns the PR firm. So that was strategic? What was happening? That's very interesting. I didn't know that, unless you're just saying that generally. Am I taking that literally or were you being funny? Just check me, HFG, if I'm just taking literally and you were being funny. KC said Megan Good was the other woman. She kind of appeared rather quickly. So I don't, was she the one in the text messages? We want to know, Megan. We need you to approach the bench. We want to know. We want to know. All right. I don't see any more questions. You guys have any more questions? I'm going to hop off of here. Thank you guys to everyone that came back for round 2. We had round 1 earlier. Thank you guys so much. I'm pretty sure YouTube told me to kick rocks, but I thank you for all the people that are here supporting. I appreciate you guys. Sage said those text messages remind me of a past relationship. The manipulation is real. This woman being Caucasian doesn't have anything to do with it. He has issues. Duly noted, Sage. Well spoken. Christine said, I was shocked they got married in the first place. I'm assuming you're talking about Megan Good and Devon Franklin. I think a lot of us were shocked. They met on some movie set or something as well. So Julia said, why do you think black men are mad at the one black juror? Are they mad at the one black juror? Julia, let me know what you're talking about because I didn't hear. Have the jurors spoken? Let me see if any jurors have spoken before we get off here. Then I have to come do a part 3 because I'm like, guess what, guys? The jurors have spoken. Jonathan, I wonder if the jurors said anything. Jurors interview. Jury delivers next. Jurors. See if they speak. I'm just Googling. I don't have any real authority right now. I'm just. Okay, wait a minute. ABC, jury delivers mixed verdict in NYC assault trial of Marvel actor Jonathan Majors. A Manhattan criminal court jury found Marvel star Jonathan Majors guilty of 1 count of assault and 1 count of harassment, but acquitted him of another count of assault and 1 aggravated harassment count, all in connection with an alleged attack on his ex-girlfriend, Grace Jabari, in the backseat of SUV this past March. The verdict came after about 5 hours of deliberation over portions of 3 days. Major stood to hear the verdict, but was seated at the defense table in a gray suit between defense attorneys Priya Chaudhry and Seth Zuckerman. His current girlfriend, actress Megan Good, was seated behind him along with members of his family. Jabari testified Majors fractured her finger and lacerated her ear after she grabbed his phone when a message from another woman popped up saying, I wish I was kissing you. The defense accused Jabari of making up her allegations out of revenge for Majors breaking off the relationship. So that was their defense, guys. They were basically saying that Jabari made up all of this stuff because Jonathan Majors didn't want to be with her anymore. So maybe the whole Megan Good bit was to corroborate that Jonathan wasn't with her anymore because he was with somebody else. And this time he chose a black woman conveniently. The mixed verdict signals the jury believed Jonathan Majors recklessly assaulted Grace Jabari but did not intentionally do so. The mixed verdict also suggests the jury did not believe Majors intentionally committed aggravated harassment inside the SUV, but did believe he harassed her outside the vehicle by picking her off the ground and throwing her back inside. Majors did not appear to react as the verdict was read. He stood with his lawyers facing the jury as the forewoman announced the verdict on each of the 4 counts. Major's attorney, Priya Sharji, released a statement saying it is clear the jury did not believe Grace, all of that I just said. Jabari's attorney also released a statement on the mixed verdict. He said justice was finally served today, proving that the truth can prevail even in the face of power. Grace did not choose to be in this situation. So this is Grace's attorney, Grace Jabari's attorney. Said justice. I'm like, she got an attorney. I mean, this was the state. So maybe she got her own personal attorney. Justice was finally served today, proving that the truth can prevail even in the face of power. Grace did not choose to be in this situation, the statement said. The choice that she made was to stand up for what was right following Mr. Major's arrest in March of this year. Grace has been publicly attacked as a result of her courage to testify to the truth, but her unwavering resolve to see this case through to the end was born out of her desire to give other survivors similar courage when justice requires. So now she's become one of the faces of domestic violence. And then they have what the DA said. We already talked about that. Sentencing on the 2 counts of conviction set for February 6th. Judge Gaffey renewed an order of protection that prevents Majors from any contact with Jabari. Majors faces up to a year in prison on the 2 misdemeanor counts of conviction. It is highly unlikely a first-time offender would actually be sentenced that severely on a split misdemeanor verdict. As reported earlier, the verdict may have implications far outside the Manhattan courtroom. Prior to his arrest in March, Majors Kang the Conqueror character was being set up as the next major supervillain in the Marvel Universe. Soon after the verdict, Disney, the parent company of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, announced that they parted ways with Majors. Oh, man. His prestige drama magazine Dreams was postponed from its scheduled release earlier this month. Oh, he's going through it. He's going through it, guys. But nope, it doesn't look like a juror said anything. So there was a black juror. Let me see. Grace was living with Jonathan at one point, but I don't think they are anymore. HFG said to clarify, Priya Sharji's husband, Andrew Burke, was hired as Major's crisis publicist when the situation first went down. Absolutely. Okay. That's pretty much what you said. That's kind of what I gathered from what you said earlier. So her husband, Andrew Burke, was the one who released the text screenshots. Okay. All right. I think I like that a little. It wasn't a good idea, but I think I like that a crisis manager or a publicist did it and not the attorney, because it really made the attorney like, wait, why did you do that? Even though I still think it was a bad idea that the publicist did it. But at least it was a publicist company. So Charleston White was arrested, huh? Is that trending or something? Y'all don't have to let me get off of here. Let me see. Charleston White. You guys know Darius McCray from Family Matters. He was just arrested. His kid's mom lived here. So he was just arrested and they sent for not paying child support since like 2019. Crazy. What? I see a lot of sites saying it, but I don't see any real reputable sites talking about Charleston White. Uh, yeah, I don't see some YouTube. So somebody's showing his mugshot, but I don't know if that was from today. Text messages sealed his fate, I do believe. He said he's been in jail for a minute. Okay. Avanti said, I know his folks. He was arrested a minute ago and got some extra charges. Darius McCrary just got again? Because I had let's see. Did I have his? I think what I have had his address on it, but I did have his warrant or whatever. I had that as well. You said don't free Charles. Oh my gosh. Let me see. Let's see what's happening. So YouTube jumping. We up here just all of us just splitting our time, huh? Because YouTube is okay. I see it. Wow. All right, y'all. I'm about to hop on off of here. Thank you guys so much for coming for part 2. Hopefully, I answer all of your questions. Be sure to hit that like button, subscribe if you haven't done so already. We'll be back to do it hopefully later on this week. Until then, enjoy the rest of your Monday.